Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. This is part 2 of our how to make a charcuterie board with a resin river down the middle. As I mentioned in the first video, this video is going to be in-depth detail so that this way you can go home, or if you're at home right now, you can go into your garage and start building it right now. Right? This is not going to be 20 times the speed. You just see me go and 7 minutes later I got a board. That does not happen. You got to prep the wood, you got to build a form, you got to do everything like that, and that takes a lot of time. And then when you pour the resin, you got to wait to do it properly. You have to wait 1 week so that it cures, at least well enough so that you could start finishing it. Because in all honesty, they say that it takes like a month for resin to 100% cure, but after a week it's solid. You can start sanding and everything, and then we'll do the finishing touches in our last video, part 4. So this video is part 2, and I'm going to show you how I went out and spent a fortune for a silicone form. Who are you kidding? If you know me, you know I'm as cheap as can be. There's no way I'm going to go spend $70–80 on a form to do a charcuterie board. I've been doing this for years. I've been very successful. I haven't had any issues. Let me show you what I use for my forms. There you go. A good old piece of particle board covered in tuck tape. That's all. That's all you need. Don't go out there wasting your money, because you don't have to do that. Get a $10 piece of board, if you, or scrap, whatever. This was just a piece of scrap, to tell you the truth. And we're going to build it in there, all right? So this build starts right now. All right, so step 1. As you can see, there is this lip. It's just, I cut an inch and a half off the end, and I nailed it on here a long time ago. So what I'm going to do is, I just got a piece of, this is actually compressed cardboard, right? So I'm going to just put it along the edge. That's going to be the side of the end of the boards, okay? So let me show you. So I got my boards as I showed you in the last video. We got the outside edges. Oh, I want it this way, of course. And there we go. And these will go right up to there. Something like that. Now, if you remember, I made them 18 inches long because we can trim off an inch or two on each side to square it up at the end. But where are my glasses? Because, can't see anything. All right, measuring tape. One of a million that I have. All right, so this is sitting at 12.5 inches. I'm going to bring it in a little tighter. That's 11. I'm going to make it 11.5 right there. 11.5 there. And 11.5 there. Okay, I'm going to show you why I'm doing this now. Okay, so I measured out the board, and this is how it's going to be an 11.5. It'll turn out by about 17-ish, around there. And this is why I'm doing this. Okay, so what I do is I take my marker and I'll mark the inside at the bottom for both sides. Okay. And this tells me that's where my wood is going to sit. Now, don't worry about getting some mark on your wood. We're going to plane this, sand this, everything will come off. All right, so that's there. I'm going to take this off. I can remove these now. And here's what I'm going to start to do. So I know that this piece of wood here is there, so I'm going to put a bead of silicone starting from right about here, and I'm going to bring it all the way down to there. Okay, I'm going to move the camera so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, as I mentioned, there's the edge of my wood, of the live edge wood that's there. So I'm going to put a bead of silicone starting here inside there. And why? I want to make sure that if the resin goes underneath the board, which it'll stop there, because there'll be a bead of silicone there. And I'm going to do for this side the same thing. So right about here to all the way over, right to about there. That's good. And then the ends will be here, around here somewhere, and the edge there. Okay, so now I know how the wood is going to be, okay, where it's going to sit and where I need to put the silicone. So let's start with the silicone. So I go out and I buy this DAP, right, Alex Plus here. right? And I pay this about $3 roughly per tube at Rona. I'm not gonna lie to you, I go to Rona because it's only just silicone anyway, some or whatever it's called. Anyways, so I am going to first start with putting a good bead of silicone down here, right? And that's for the piece of wood. Oops, there we go. For this piece of wood right here. I'm going to use this as its backer to make sure that the wood doesn't move. There we go. Okay, because I'm going to push the wood up against it. Okay, now I am going to just put a bead down here just to be safe. There we go. All right, now. All right, so as I mentioned, we're going to put our silicone down this line and this line. You know, if you're going to try making these to sell, you want to try to make sure you spend the least amount of money as possible. It's obvious, right? This stuff can be expensive, so buying those silicone backing, you know, is just those silicone forms, they're just outrageously expensive. And you know, now we got this all laid out. Okay, now what I can do is I can do this. I'm going to bring this down and I'm going to try to put it right on that line right there, and then put a little pressure on the back. And because the board here has that little, the board at the back there, because it has that piece at the back, I could put pressure on it as long as I do it straight. It's not, there's no problem. Here's another, the second piece going in. I'm going to take a look, make sure I'm right on the lines. Right around there. There we go. And push it in. Push this one in. Perfect. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, because I have that bead of silicone here, the resin won't go under either one of them. Guess I really don't need that piece here. I put it just in case. Wasn't thinking. It's been a while actually since I made any of these, and the reason it's been a while is because I've been doing a lot of just like cutting boards and stuff like that, and so all of a sudden I get a ton of orders now in the past week, and I'm like, what's going on? But so I don't know, but whatever. I'm going to put a bead of silicone at the bottom of this. Right, and this one is going to go here at the back. There we go, just like the one at the front here, right? I'm going to do the exact same thing. However, this one unfortunately doesn't have anything for pressure on the back, so I'm going to do that. But before I do that, I'm going to silicone this thing like crazy. Make sure nothing gets out of there. All right, you ready? Here we go. Good. I'm going to take this piece. I am going to silicone it as well a little bit. Why, I don't know, but I will, just because. Sam I am. I will not eat it with green eggs and ham. There we go. There, okay. Now, that's going to hold the back from not going over, but of course, just putting that bit of silicone there is not going to do it. So I am going to I'm going to just take one screw and I'm going to put it in here. There. That ain't moving anywhere. All right. So there we have it. Okay. So I'm going to turn it around sideways because we still have more caulking to do. Trust me. Now, yes, when we take the thing off, we will have an issue with silicone on the ends, and that's why we are going to trim it all off. There we go. All right. Okay. Now, this is almost ready to pour. The last thing I got to do to this is put a bead of silicone down in the middle here. Why? Because we want to overfill the resin, because like I always say, resin shrinks 10%. So you got to actually overfill the center, the river, with resin. There we go. This is now ready to pour the resin in. And next what we're going to do is we got to figure out is how much resin do we actually need for this. And I'm going to explain to you how we're going to achieve that number and how we're going to figure that out. First, what we're going to do is we're going to take a series of measurements. I'll do 3. So this is in about half an inch. So let's say this is 4. I'm going to say that's 5. That's 5 3/4 and 5 3/4. Let's just say the average space in the middle here is 5 3/4 by 18 by 1 1/4. So I'm going to take you over to my computer and I'm going to show you how I calculate this, okay? So let's go. All right, so our next step is to calculate how much epoxy do we need to fill that river. So this is what I do. I come to this website here, Mass Epoxies. And Mass Epoxies, I got to be honest, I've never used their products. I don't know anything really about them, but they got this awesome calculator. So this is what I do. I come in and I give it all the specifications I need. So we know that the piece is 18 inches long. The width of the piece, and we're talking about where the epoxy is going to be needed, we said it was 5.75. And we said the thickness was 1.25 inches. So if we come over to here, we know that we need 2.12 liters of resin to fill that river. Okay, so now you have 2 parts to the epoxy, the actual epoxy and then the hardener. And those have a mixing ratio. So what we're going to do now is figure out how much of part A, which is the epoxy, and how much of part B, which is the hardener, do we need. So we're going to scroll down, and the one I'm using is a 3-to-1 epoxy resin. And so we got to figure out how many part A, part B for 2 liters. Now, I could tell you right now off the top of my head, 2 liters is 1,500 of the actual 1.5 liters of the actual epoxy, and 500 mils of the hardener will give me 2 liters. And that's exactly what I want. But if you were doing something different, you needed, let's say 1,800, you can come in here and you can start playing, and you can say you have 1,400, and that'll give you 1.866 liters. And you can even keep going and go 135. Oh, that's way too much. I meant to say 135, and there's 1,800, right? And 450 for the hardener. So that's how we do it. So I know now I need 1.5 liters of the resin and 500 mil of the epoxy. So let's go over there and let's mix it. All right, so here we go. Took me a while. I realized after that I didn't even have some kind of a bucket to mix the stuff, and it's only 2 liters, so this is way too big, but I have nothing else in between. But we'll make do, trust me. All right, so first thing we got to do is measure out 1.5 liters of part A. So, and today we're using Slow Q Cast Snow K resin, good price, out of a place in Mississauga, Ontario, so west of Toronto. And I've been using their stuff for quite a long time. So, all right, so let's see what we got. It's always 1/3 a third, right? So, $6.40, $6.70, $7.30, $40, $6, okay. So I got to do two like this. Now the problem is that of course I could feel the weight as I dump it into the bucket. I could feel the weight of the actual cup is actually still has resin inside. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. So I'm going to have to put extra. And I'm usually trying to be as accurate as possible, but unfortunately today it's not going to be that. So I'll put a little extra hardener in it, not a big deal. So here we go, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, just a little bit more. And so when you mix resin, you have a time limit, right? From the time, you always say it's like it starts to set in 20 minutes, 40 minutes, or whatever that is. The thing of it is this, with resin, it doesn't actually start. That timer doesn't start until you mix the hardener in. Once the hardener is mixed in, then you got 20, 40 minutes, whatever the actual product says, before it starts to do its isothermic process. So it starts to build up heat. Okay, so I gotta do 500 of this, so I'm gonna do 550. There we go. All right. All right, so there we go. So now when I dump this in, that isothermic process will start, and I have 20 to 40 minutes to get this mixed up, my Mica powder in, the whole works. I'm not worried because I've taken much longer than that and I've never had an issue. Of course, there's always the first time, right? So one way I mix mine up is with a drill and one of these little paddles at the bottom. I buy them off of, where is it, Amazon. I don't know if they're like $5–10 or something like this. So I'm just trying to get all that extra stuff in there. Mica powders. All right, so with this one, I'm going with a blue blood and then a ghost white. That's what I'm going to do for this one, all right? So you don't need a lot of this stuff, but I still put a lot. I want to make sure it's really saturated. I like it that way, and well, I do what I like, to tell you the truth, unless someone tells me otherwise. Now, so as you know, I probably got about 2 liters in there. So I'm going to put this, and then the white. I love the way this puts that white, kind of the lines and everything in it. That's like a little bit more actually. And I know there's some people that are probably looking at me going, oh my God, look how much you waste. But that's the amount right there, okay? I'm gonna drop that in. Now, let me get an angle for you.
All right, so I know I mentioned I wouldn't do it at 20 times the speed, but I'm sure you don't want to watch me actually mix that for 20 minutes.
We have to make sure that this is level. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to get a level right over here and a bunch of shims to shim it up. So I want to, here's my level this way. Bang on there, okay? Talk about luck there. How am I going to do this now? I think I have a small, oh, it's okay. I can do it on the, sorry, I'm going to do it on the back here to see, and it is level. Believe it or not, my floor at this point, at this angle, we're having it here, is level. It says it's a little high on this side. What about this? Let's see what this says. This says perfect. This says tad high over there. Okay, let's pretend it was out of level. I would take these shims that I bought at Rona, and I would just shim the bottom right here of this to raise it a little bit. If I had to do this side, boom, like that. That's all I would do. And I would shim where I need it so that it's level. Because when I pour the resin, I don't want this side to be low and all the resin's over here, or or vice versa. So I'm good here. So I'm going to pour a bit. I'm gonna let it do its thing, and then I'm gonna keep checking it, and eventually I'll come back and figure out, do I have to change the leveling? The funny thing is a lot of the videos, this is the most watched part, is the actual pouring of the resin. So here goes the most watched part. You ready?
So after pouring the resin, what will happen is the colors will actually almost start to separate, and you'll get a distinct blue and ghost white. And that's what really makes it beautiful, because then you can start doing some swirls and make it maybe almost like a paisley design, or you can go ahead and just leave it the way it is, and it will definitely separate, and you'll see the blue and the ghost white. It's really up to you and the preference that you prefer.
Don't see any resin coming out anywhere. It's a good sign, but trust me, I've seen it where it looks good and then 2 hours later you see it starting to come out. So, okay. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see all these bubbles popping. They'll just keep coming. The bubbles will all come up to the top. I've never had an issue. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait a good 20 minutes. And then I'm going to come back with a torch, and I'm just going to gently torch the top just to bust any of the bubbles. So we'll see you in 20 minutes. All right, so it's been about 30 minutes, and what I do is I just take one of these propane little tanks here, and I just wave it over the top. You don't want to increase the heat, if possible, of the actual resin. So, like I said, there's not even much here. It's pretty much already done. So I'm just going to go over, wave it. That's it. It's done. So it broke all the bubbles at the top. New bubbles will come up. They'll keep coming up until it hardens. Eventually, hopefully, there'll be none, and it'll have that beautiful finish. Now, in about 6 to 8 hours from now, what's going to happen is I'm going to come back down, and I will, of course, record this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a swirl in it, and I'll show you. Let me take care of this screw, and I'll do this, right, just to put a design in it. No point in doing it now. It will not stay, because this is going to keep moving and keep doing as it cures, as the heat builds up. It's kind of like a boiling pot of water. The water keeps going round and round and round, and so will the resin. Of course, it's not going to boil, but it's going to do the same kind of effect. So anyways, so that's what I'm going to do, but that will be in about anywhere from 6 to, I don't know, 10 hours, depending on how fast this resin is curing. Now, I just knocked some dirt into it, so I'm going to just, boom, take it out. And that's it, and that's it. So, see you in about 6 to 8 hours. All right, so it's 8 hours later, and to be honest, I went out for dinner with my wife and some friends and had a great time. And I'm looking around and I'm trying to find if I got any leaks, and not a drop. So that's perfect. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of my knives and I'm just gonna touch the end to see what the resin is like right here. Okay, so it's definitely thickened up quite a bit. Looks like it is time to do the swirl or do some design. Now, I could leave it like this, and tomorrow morning it'll be even harder and it'll look great like this, but I think I can do better than this. So let's give it a swirl. So all I'm going to do is take a screwdriver, and I'm going to start in the corner here, see what it's like. Oh yeah. And so now, what I do is I start at the top and I start to go downer and downer and downer, because I do want to mix it up right down to the base. Ooh, it's thicker here, that's for sure, a lot thicker. Now, one thing to know is that when you're swirling it like this, you are putting air into the actual resin, so you've got to torch it after again, because you're going to see some bubbles come up. So now I'm going a little deeper, but it always, so for me with this resin, ooh, I can feel the heat coming off of it. I could tell right in the middle it's hardened because I can't go as far down, but not a big deal. I'm just gonna continue doing it everywhere else. And I always end off at the ends so that this way you can't see where I pull up the actual screwdriver that I use to mix it. Now, if we look closely, I don't know if you can see it, but if I look against the light, I can see a bunch of little bubbles. So again, I'm gonna take my torch, just gonna pass it over. It'll cause those bubbles to burst, so I don't have to worry about sanding and then finding little holes in my resin. There we go. Well, there's going to be a few more that are going to come up. I can see one's going to come up here, a few over there. So, in no way, shape, or form is this the final look. This is going to give me an idea what it's going to look like. It will slowly change a little bit more. I hope that it won't change too much, so that this way I can have this pattern. I kind of like this pattern, but it will change, guaranteed. I can see all the bubbles coming to the top. If I didn't do that swirl, I would have nothing to worry about. There would be no bubbles, no anything up at the top. It would have been really easy to actually sand down and do stuff like that, flatten it and everything. But it's kind of boring. At this point, to tell you the honest truth, there's nothing left to do for me. This is gonna literally sit like this for the next 7 days in this form. So today is Saturday. Next Saturday, I'll start to unscrew everything, take it all apart. I'll take a screwdriver and I'll pop it out of its form. And then we'll flatten it, then we'll sand it, and then we'll get it all ready to finish the actual polish and then seal the wood. So this will be the final pattern. It's now about 24 hours after I poured it. It is definitely still soft. If I take something like a knife and I go in the corners, this is how I always test everything. Just go in the corner right about here and I'll just touch it, and the knife will still go down. It's not like butter, but it's got some strength to it, but it still needs at least another 48 hours to cure to be at least able to get out of the mold. But I won't do that. I'm literally going to take this now and I am going to put it to the side and work on some other projects, and in exactly a week from now, next Saturday, I'll be popping it out, planing it, sanding it, and then putting the finishes. So I hope to see you in the next episode. Don't be afraid to try new things. It's always fun, and when you make a mistake, you just say, I meant to do that. I thought it'd be a good idea. Take care, and see you again soon.